What does it mean to be a good leader? What makes a good leader? Is it the tactical calculations to ensure victory in an upcoming battle or war? Is it the compassion shown to subordinates to make them feel like a nice tight-knit family? Is it the showcasing of willpower to overcome any obstacle and to lead by example? In this recent One Piece chapter, we get to see the gradual rise of Luffy's morality and his idea of what it means to be the Pirate King. Freedom, above all else, leads to the most rewarding life. All right. Welcome one, welcome all. I'm going to start off by saying a couple of things. First off, this might be one of my favorite chapters of Wano in its entirety so far, between Act 1 and Act 2. And I'm also going to say that, I don't know, I'm happy. Like, Luffy got a speech, Luffy did Luffy things, and it showcased a progression of his actual mental fortitude, in a sense of him being a captain and what it means to actually be like a free human being. So with all that said, let's get into this review. So we start off the chapter with a couple of hits and a couple of clashes between a couple of the Nine-Red Scabbards and Luffy fighting everybody in Udon prison, and Daifuku is off in the corner saying, I told you it doesn't matter who I shoot, because all he's doing is he's shooting these virus mummy, title of the chapter, bullets at everybody, and we'll get into that in just a second. And we we go a couple pages more, and we get Luffy and Chopper using a tag team attack, which is pretty cool. We haven't seen a tag team attack from Luffy and Chopper in ever, I believe. And it's called Heavy Stamp, and it's Chopper's Heavy Point and Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Stamp. So it's cool. They're taking out a couple of people. We get a shot of Grandpa Hio, Okiku, a shot of Kawamatsu, Raizo. And even though these are one panel apiece, I feel like the anime is going to extend these scenes a little bit to really showcase like what they are, because in the last chapter we got this huge revelation of who these Nine-Red Scabbards are and kind of the titles that they held. And Raizo was the ninja who was he was comparable to Fukuro Kujo, the penis squid head. And then we have Okiku, who is known as the most beautiful swordsman in all of Wano. And then we get Kawamatsu, who is the strongest sumo wrestler in all of Wano. So we get a couple attacks from them. I feel like with the anime and what it's doing so far and how well it is, I get kind of these Kimetsu no Yaiba vibes with Kawamatsu. Like I said in my reaction to the last chapter 2 weeks ago. And his fighting style involves like kind of water coming from his blade is what it seems like, or that might be just him being a kappa. But his fighting style is very reminiscent of the K and Y. And then we scroll over a little bit and we get Kid and Killer, because Raizo is like, hey, friends of Luffy, take these keys and free yourselves, which is pretty alright. I mean, like, it puts the plot forward more, but it's not necessarily the biggest thing. And one of the scariest things about this page is the panels with Kid, because as menacing and kind of devastating as Kid is, he's always loud and rambunctious, and he always wants to crucify people and kill people. This is the most somber we've ever seen him. He looks, his eyes are closed. It's like he's listening. And then we see this speech panel with a couple of dots in it, which lends to tell me that he's thinking of things, and he could be thinking of how much he hates Kaido for turning Killer into this laughing maniac and breaking his will. He could be thinking about maybe wanting to join up with Luffy and the crew and fighting everybody else in the Udon prison. He could be thinking of what a shitty situation he's in, and I think we're going to see big things from Killer in this upcoming chapter or two. And Kid, sorry, I meant to say Kid, not Killer. But Kid is on this kind of like enlightening path. I think he's still going to be Kid afterwards, don't get me wrong, but I think this is a real eye-opener for him, and he's going to be more along the lines of, I'm really in this for revenge. I'm really in this to be the Pirate King, because that is his dream. His dream is to become the Pirate King. And I do believe that we're going to go see this new level of Kid along with Luffy, where he's very like calculating and smarter, and instead of him being this new age pirate who nobody knows the name of outside of him being a supernova, he's going to be this big threat coming after this chapter. And then we get a couple of more pages, and we get the explanation of what the actual bullets are made out of, or what is in them, or what is kind of like coated around them. And that is the mummy virus. The mummy virus, as stated by Daifugu, is a bullet that contains a virus that causes a high fever that sprouts from the area of infection and is an unbearable pain, as if your body is on fire. Blood comes spurting right out. So one of two things before I get deeper into this is going back to what I said in my King and Queen Calamities video of Queen being the mechanic and kind of the weapons dealer or weapons creator for Kaido's Beast Crew. In addition to his moniker, Queen the Plague, he's this very smart, almost doctor-esque figure within the Kaido crew. Not saying that he's a doctor, but he is sort of like the scientist. We don't know, like, to the extent of it, but he has created this disease or this virus that actually infects people, which is point on point was something that Chopper should be fighting against. And another side note, Chopper should be doing a lot more medically in this story, or in this arc of Wano Kuni, because of everything that's wrong with them, or with the people. So we have like the Abisu town, everybody who can't stop smiling because they were force-fed all the smiles, the prisoners of Udon, Big Mom herself, this now new virus bullet. There's a lot of things for Chopper to overcome if he really wants to become the world's greatest doctor, and that's a separate video for a separate day. And in 2, it says it feels like fire, and I don't know if that's an implication of just how fevers are. So like when you have a fever and it's like 104, like you die at 105 basically, because after 105 your body shuts down, and then it just gets higher and higher and higher, and then you die at like 108, 109, 110, 111. But it also seems to imply that if it's spreading like fire, King might have some sort of connection with this, because King and Queen, when they are introduced together, Queen tells King, "Shut up, you perverted, torture-loving bastard." So wildfire, and it spreads like fire, and it feels like you're on fire. That might just be my brain overthinking it a little bit. But King may have some implication, or might have some cahoots with Queen in creating these things. Second of all, going back to Queen again, he is such a better representation of what a second commander or what a commander should be over Smoothie, for comparing Whole Cake Island to Wano right now. Because Queen is doing shit. Like, he's doing so much to, like, the prisoners of Udon. He's doing a lot underneath Kaido's command of what we've seen so far, right? And Smoothie really wasn't doing anything. Smoothie was on the back burner. And as much as I love to talk shit about Smoothie, I just hold Queen in such a higher regard than I do Smoothie. So those are kind of like the two things real quick. And then we go forward, and this is where we start getting into emotional territory, and why I believe that this is one of the best chapters of One Piece, if not top 3 chapters of Wano so far. Is we get this kind of like speech from a subordinate, or not a subordinate, from a prisoner of Udon, and that's when Luffy starts turning his gears, right? And before we get to that, we get this super sick panel of a bunch of prisoners who are infected, and we have Raizo and Chopper and Kiku and Kawamatsu and Luffy all standing their ground. And Daifugu's off in the background just saying, "The Queen's so great, look what he did. He manipulated this and created a virus, and oh look, Queen is just so great. Fear the Beast pirates." Daifugu's really not that sick. Fodder, don't care about him. And then Old Maid says, "The rest of you charge at them as well. Do you want to be branded as a rebel?" So everyone's like, we're screwed, we're infected, this sucks, we have nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be, so we might as well try and take them down. because once we get into this a little bit later on Luffy's behalf of the speech of him telling them the will is broken, their will is broken. So one of the prisoners starts by saying, "Please leave this place. If you guys had not come here, none of this would have happened. Even if the lot of you are truly samurai of the Red Scabbards that were supposed to have died 20 years ago, you still will not be able to win Kaido, that gigantic flying dragon. With him around, no one will be able to defeat the beast pirates. Look around you. With just a single weapon created by one of his subordinates, this is the devastation that has been brought upon us. Look at this overwhelming power. Precisely, if you outsiders never came here," and this is where everybody starts going in, and then we get this beautiful, beautiful speech and action during the speech by Luffy. And he continued to say, "We would have continued to live our normal daily lives. We would have never been subjected to this." And this is just where, like, the metaphorical shit hits the fan for Luffy. Because Luffy is one of those guys, right, who values freedom and life choices above all else. This is what he wants to do. He wants to become the Pirate King. And a lot of people have said at the beginning of his journey, all he wanted was to become strong enough to become the Pirate King, without realizing the moral kind of obligation he has to the world around him and kind of the biosphere around him, where to become the Pirate King, you have to interact with other people. You have to interact with other pirates, other groups, other countries, right? Because you'll be sailing, you'll be looking for the poneglyphs, you'll be looking for Raftel, right? And during these traverses across all of these different islands, post-time skip, I want to say, there's a few examples pre-time skip, like Alabasta, where Luffy is seeing the world around him. And while seeing the world around him, his kind of like inner monologue is changing. So beforehand, like I said, pre-time skip, it was Pirate King, meat, which only meant strong to eat, right? And then Alabasta happened, Enies Lobbies happened, Sabaody happened, Fishman Island happened, Dressrosa happened, Whole Cake Island happened. Like, they're all, Zoe happened. That's a huge one, right? And all of these instances of interactions with other people in the world are changing Luffy as he is as a person. And to paraphrase it, Oda said, "I love Luffy with all of my heart. He's basically my favorite child. I never want him to grow up." But Oda is writing Luffy's character in a way now to where he is growing up. And this is what everybody has wanted to see for the longest time, myself included, is kind of like Luffy's biggest obstacles were physical obstacles. He was never a main character of having like a mental obstacles or morality obstacles or difficult decisions where it's not just black and white. And Oda is now writing Luffy as one of the greatest protagonists of all ever, right? And like this speech is a part of it, and I think it's like one of the most beautiful things to see, because we're starting to get the foundation of Luffy's character as a captain and him actually being a leader in the new world. So we get to it, and Luffy's like, "Fuck this." Grabs a dude in the face. And Okiko's like, "No, you mustn't touch them, Luffy Taro." And Luffy, serious, right? And he's starting to get infected by the virus or the disease, whatever it is. And it seems to be more of a fever, which isn't necessarily a poison. So it shows on his body that he is getting infected because he's more immune to poison than anything else, right? Like, it's not he's immune to poison, which therefore grants him immunity to diseases. That doesn't make sense because diseases aren't poisons. So it makes sense that he's getting like all of these warts and these rashes and stuff. And he says, "Stop right there, all of you." And he just hugs them. He hugs them. He gets them going. He hugs them all. He's like, "Stop right there, all of you." Takes their pain. And it's so reminiscent of the scene in Thriller Bark where Zoro takes all of Luffy's pain and continues to push forward to set an example for the crew without anybody realizing it. But now Luffy has an audience in front of him, and this is his leadership skill. His leadership skill in being a captain is one, leading by example. I'm going to put in subquotes right here. This is not the best situation for him to put himself in, but he puts himself in these situations regardless, because that's the type of character he is. That's the aura that he like pursues. He's like, "I don't care right now. This is not a normal life." So we get into his speech, and his speech during the whole entire time, he's holding on to these dudes, and he's saying, what overwhelming power. Something like this is no effect at all, even though he's getting all like rashed out, viruses, he's sweating, his nose is bleeding, and not from like a big boob sense. Like, he is hurting right now, and he has such a strong willpower. It's my captain, right? And Chopper's freaking out in the back, and he says, I cannot believe that you guys have been this completely broken. Is this what you call normal daily life? Why would you want a reward as Kibidongo every day? And why would you call this normal? And he like shows them. He is like putting the power into the people. And Mihawk called it back in Marineford, where he was like, his greatest attribute is he can bring other people around him to join his cause. And this is a crowning moment for Luffy, for him actually becoming a morally better person. I'm not going to say that he's good, right? Because it's Luffy. Like, how do you compare like good to freedom? Like, it's one of those like philosophical questions, right? And he states, I made a promise to my friend Tama in Curry, who gave me food. I told her I'd make sure nobody would have to worry about food in this country ever again. And this is slightly a gripe that I have with this chapter, because Luffy's still thinking about, even though he's doing this promise, right? And he's fulfilling this promise to Tama, it's not the sense of like, I'm going to make this country a better place so you guys don't have to worry about like a tyrant or like diseases, or I'm going to make this a better place for women and children, right? It's because it's a promise of food. He's like, I made this promise. So it's like, I love this growth. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love it. I want to inject it into my veins, right? But it's still one of these simple things, and this is why I do love Luffy, is that it's just about food. And then he goes on and says, we're here to defeat Kaido. And he gives this option to the prisoners, right? Like, after fighting them, not fighting them, but like grabbing them and holding them, letting them know. And Hyo's like, what an amazing leader. He's probably thinking like, oh, he reminds me of Odin. And this is just like the culmination of everything, right? And so to all the people who said Luffy didn't have future sight, you can suck one right now. We get to the last couple panels of the chapter, last couple pages, and Luffy says, I saw a slightly dangerous future, so, and he's all torn back, and he stuffs Old Maid with this, like, shell. It's like a 200 times X, like, bullet, and he stuffs him, and it's just a beautiful silhouetted out panel. We get to the end of the chapter, and it's 8 days out before the Fire Festival. It says final battle, but I'm just presuming that it means the Fire Festival. So that's the chapter. What an amazing job, Oda. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. I cannot wait for next week's chapter. And while going through this review, I've said a lot of things that I do want to make videos about, but most importantly, I have my Hawkins video that's coming out hopefully tomorrow, because I don't work a double tomorrow, so I'll be able to get out another video. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for tuning in. This is Wrastlin'. Like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, smoke some major doinks in homage.